You ever wonder if you're predestined to go to heaven and some are predestined to go to hell? There's really no choice that you can make. God's will be done. Either way, you can't do anything about it. This idea of God's will and predestination, it can really make you scratch your head and wonder. But I start to realize that God's will is much, much more than that simplistic idea. That I'm starting to see that God's will, His will be done, and it always will be done. And there's nothing you can add to or take away from His will being done. But the thing about His will for us is that it's God's will that we choose. And either way you slice it, either way you manipulate it or rephrase it or try to rewrite it, inevitably that's what will happen, is that God's will be done. You will end up making a choice. And that is God's will. You cannot escape it. There's nothing you can do to get out of that. You have to make a choice. It's inevitable. And that is God's will. And God's will be done. So a lot of people say, I don't have a choice. God's will be done. That's because they're blind and they don't understand the will of God. For it is God's will that you choose. And being blind to this and blaming God for your inability to choose to go to heaven will not change a thing. It matters not, because you're still making your choice, whether you realize it or not. So what choice are you making? Make sure you choose to follow the Son of God, to follow Jesus Christ, to turn from your sins, to obey His teachings. Because God's will be done. God's will be done. And His will is for you to choose. Peace.